Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons and Dragons, and we're going to talk about intellectual property, and we're going to talk, most importantly, the main subject of this video is canon. We're going to talk about Dungeons and Dragons canon, and we're going to talk about why Dungeons and Dragons canon is the bleeding edge of modern canon management. Actually, I would say modern canon recognition, modern canon recognition. All right, okay, let's dig into this. Okay, so first of all, I've been thinking a lot about Dungeons and Dragons canon. I think it's taken more of my brain space than anything. Than Dungeons and Dragons is always in my head, but it's starting to get compartmentalized, right? Like, one of the things that I don't concern myself with much anymore is Dungeons and Dragons rule set, right? So one, I understand the rules quite competently enough to run Dungeons and Dragons, and I even understand it at the level where I can actually modify it, right? Like, basically there are like rules for writing music. Like, you should know, you could break the rules of music once you understand them, right? You shouldn't be breaking the rules because you don't understand them. You can break the rules of music once you understand them. And actually, the best innovation and the best music is made by masters who know the rules and then purposely, beautifully break the rules, right? And I think Dungeons and Dragons is the same thing. You gotta know the rules, and then you gotta break them, right? And Dungeons and Dragons literally puts it in the rules, like, hey, the rules aren't in charge, you're in charge, right? So, and that's another thing. That's another reason why you can think about. I never thought about this. I'm just gonna say it now. Dungeons and Dragons is the jazz of narrative, right? Like, and I hate to say that because nobody really likes jazz anymore at the macro level. But actually, the more I think about it, D&D is a lot like jazz, right? Only like the reality is the music fans with the finest palates like jazz, right? And music fans are like, I like a cheeseburger, don't like jazz. We're like, and I will say I don't really like jazz. That's like, I'm going to say that right now. But I do have an understanding of jazz, and I understand jazz from its historical importance and things like that. So, but I do think there's strong analogies between jazz and Dungeons and Dragons. All right, let's stay on topic here. We're moving toward Dungeons and Dragons canon. So I've been working very hard to understand Dungeons and Dragons canon. Okay. And I think I've arrived there. I think I understand Dungeons and Dragons canon, and I want to explain Dungeons and Dragons canon to you today. What I think is happening with Dungeons and Dragons canon right now, and I appreciate your patience. This is going to be a little bit of a journey. Let's go. Okay, so first of all, in order to the reason why I kept struggling to understand Dungeons and Dragons canon was I was comparing it to other products, right? Other intellectual products. And I realized I had to step back. In order to understand Dungeons and Dragons canon, I had to understand modern canon. What is modern canon? By the way, when I'm saying canon, I'm saying C-A-N-O-N, right? Canon, right? I'm not trying to make a joke here. Just like the Bible has canon, right? The canon of the Holy Bible is 66 books. It was decided at the Nicene Council, and it was decided with the Nicene Creed, and that's canon, right? And so, and books that aren't in that 66, they're called apocrypha, right? So canon right now today, there's a general understanding, not even agreement that So if you said, what is canon for Dungeons and Dragons? If you ask that question today, and most people would hold up the 2014 PHB, the 2014 DMG, the 2014 Monster MM, Monster Manual, Dungeon Master Guide, Player's Handbook, and no one would contest that they are Dungeons and Dragons canon. No one, not anybody of significance, right? Like, and if anybody did, they'd be the same person who, like, the Statue of David by Michelangelo sucks. Like, you could say that, but you're, like, objectively wrong, or like, done. Like, and I know everybody's like, oh, art is subjective. No, if you say that the Statue of David is sucky art, you suck, and that's what's gonna be said. The people are gonna, like, no, the Statue of David doesn't suck, you suck. right? This has been heralded by 1,000, critics down the lines. You're an idiot, right? Like, done. Conversation's over. That would be the genuine, in my opinion, that would be the general. And also, like, this is getting, by the way, this is why I said thank you for your patience, because I know this is going to get into deep territory. Like, we are in the deepest end of the pool at this point. And I'll also say, I have sympathy for myself, because I end up in these situations where I'm talking about things that are just like that. No one even understands the conversation has arrived, right? Until 3 years after I've like broken the whole thing down. And I'm telling you, 3, 4, 5 years from now, people are going to be talking about what I'm talking about right now, right? And I can tell you this because I said 5 years ago, in my humble opinion, Dungeons and Dragons isn't a game. And right now, you have legit. You can go on Twitter, you can find people going, Dungeons and Dragons is therapy, legitimate therapy. Like, and it's not even like. The debate is kind of over. People are like, hey, you can't argue that D&D is therapy because it's already happening. These people are receiving therapy through Dungeons & Dragons. And there's multiple articles on it, right? And so I don't agree with that. I don't think Dungeons & Dragons is therapy. And I actually think using Dungeons & Dragons for therapy is like using a screwdriver to eat yogurt, right? Like, it's the wrong tool for what you're trying to do, right? And the other thing is, it's beneath Dungeons & Dragons. Serving as therapy is not even... It's not its highest achievement, right? It's not what it's capable of, right? So, but this canon thing is a big freaking deal, okay? And one of the reasons, too, is I think that, like Christopher Columbus discovered America, right? Like, Dungeons & Dragons is so far out on narrative that it is cutting paths, it's bushwhacking through what every other narrative engine is trying to accomplish, and it's miles ahead. It's so far ahead, nobody even knows where it is, right? Like, except me, right? Like, yeah. All right. So, all right, let's get there. Okay. This is what I currently believe. So I have looked at canon at the scope of modern canon, and this is where I've landed. I'm going to give you my humble opinion on the state of canon for Dungeons and Dragons. Let's move. All right. Here's what's going on with canon. Every company that matters in the world today is an intellectual product company. The vast majority of companies today, and we're taking that 50,000 foot back, right? We're going back, and we're looking at we're looking at all of American, and this is American. We're looking at all American companies to understand Dungeons and Dragons, Dungeons and Dragons canon. All right, every company that matters is an intellectual product company. The vast majority of companies don't understand that they are intellectual product companies. There are companies out there like, I make brake rotors. What do I got to do with intellectual property? And, my answer back would be, well, you don't really understand that, you control the narrative for your creator. You control the narrative for your product. You control the narrative for your branding. The colors you choose to make your brake rotors matter. There's a story being told by your promotion, by your packaging, by the text you use to help people understand your product, right? By the art you use to help people understand your product, right? By your product's lore. Yeah, brake rotors have lore. You don't know that, but you're losing money because you don't understand it. Every company in the world that matters is an intellectual product company. Okay? All right. And the vast majority of companies don't understand this. They literally don't understand that fact. Okay? All right. Canon, if you are an intellectual product company, canon matters. Canon matters. Right. Canon controls your product. Canon controls your product. You as a company cannot control canon, nor can a company even understand canon, and a company can never make canon. The community around your product determines the canon. Side note, there are companies that are stating canon. saying this is the canon of our product, they don't actually have the right or the ability to do it, right? And what this is it's like Hurricane Ian just arrived, right? Nobody can control the weather, but this is like a ski lodge saying we can control the weather. You can put some flakes in the air, all right? That doesn't mean you can control the weather. You can't stop Hurricane Ian, right? And that's exactly the thing. Canon controls product today. Companies cannot control or understand Canon, and the product community determines Canon. That is the reality of all of this. That is the reality of Canon today. So to bring it full circle, right? Dungeons and Dragons has a canon complexity that is far higher than any product has ever existed in all of humanity. Dungeons and Dragons is the product that has the highest canon complexity ever. And it is a garbled, and Dungeons and Dragons canon today is a garbled mess because no one stopped to understand modern canon and talk about Dungeons and Dragons in the context of modern canon until I did it in this video. All that's my humble opinion. I'm ready to hear yours. Let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful May. Wonderful millennium.